name is Roos, and today I will be talking about reintegration. Reintegration is a subject I came in touch with when I was pretty young. My father worked in a boarding school, and he worked with children who couldn't live at home anymore and who didn't feel a connection with our society. They felt left out, and after a few years, he decided to quit his job because he told me I found it very frustrating to work on a progress that didn't go in the right direction. And this always didn't scare me or something, but it gave me more motivation to think of reasons why couldn't he help those people, and what was going wrong in the process. So when in high school we were discussing different theories and models about why people become a criminal and why people don't really feel a connection with our society, I was very interested in it, and I was sure that I really wanted to do something with it. So this is also one of the main reasons why I decided to choose social innovation, because I really want to do something within our society and look at people who are maybe not feel a connection with our society. So I started doing my research, and I immediately discovered that reintegration is not only about criminals who want to reintegrate back in our society, but this group is so much bigger. Think of people who struggle with mental health issues, of people struggling with addiction, of people who are sitting at home because they're suffering from a burnout. And before I start my talk, I want to first give you an overview of what our current situation in the Netherlands is right now. Because in the Netherlands we have a great system of reintegration. We have around 100 of reintegration centers. And if you go to a reintegration center, people help you with finding a job or with your finance, and people even help you with struggling with your mental health issues or your addiction. And our government is also really supporting reintegration, so we invest around 2.5 million euros a year in reintegration. And when I then did more research about people who succeed to reintegrate back in our society, and it was only 50%, I was a bit surprised. I mean, we invest 2.5 million euros a year, so why is the number so low that's actually able to reintegrate back in our society? I then found it very important to look at reasons why people lose a connection with our society. And all these different models and theories came across, but then I thought, whoa, a lot of people maybe have different reasons or are in a different situation, so not all the models are applicable for them. But there was one model that I found very interesting and could maybe summarize a little bit why people feel a low connection, and it was the vicious circle. The vicious cycle. And this cycle actually explains that in the beginning of your life, you're completely dependent on your parents. Your parents decide what your values are, what your behavior is, and what is wrong and what is right. But after a few years, external factors will have influences in how you behave. Think of a school, your neighborhood, or a sports team like your hockey team or your soccer team. And you can imagine if this circle only consists out of bad influences, it is very hard to then feel a connection with our society. And even if you want to break the cycle, how can you do that? Because no one ever taught you how to go to school or how to find a job or how to deal with your finance, because you've never been taught. And at this point in my research, I really wanted to talk with someone who was actually working in a reintegration center. So I came in touch with Flo de Haas, and Flo de Haas works in a reintegration center in Amsterdam, and I asked her, why do you think people feel a low connection with our society, and why is it for them so hard to reintegrate back in our society? And she told me that we can help them with a lot. She said, we can help them with finding a job, we can help them with their money, we even can help them with mental health issues or addictions they may struggle with. But what we can't do is remove the sign that's above the head that is saying, I was a criminal, I was dealing with addiction, I'm suffering from mental health issues. So after knowing this, I thought, okay, maybe it's also important to look within our society. What is the role of people who are actually attending our society? Do we have an individual role in reintegration? And I was doing research, and finally I saw a TED Talk with the title, How Equal Do We Want Our World to Be? And this TED Talk was talking about the fact that we think we are really aware of the choices we make, but sometimes we need to remind ourselves that a lot of external things can influence us. Think of, he gave an example with showing 5 beers. He asked a few people in the audience, okay, can you rate those beers? First tell me which beer you like the most, and then tell me which beer you like the least. And the people tasted the beers and gave their answers. After that, he did the assignment again, but this time he removed the labels. And the people gave completely different answers. He then after told that the people didn't even need to taste the beer because they already saw the labels. They already made their opinion before they even tasted the beer. And this is also something we are doing in our current society, because we think when we see a person that behaves a little bit differently, or when we see a person that looks differently than we're familiar with, we suddenly think, okay, this is weird, I'm not really going to do something with this person. But when you would then be open to talk with someone, and when you would say to yourself, okay, maybe I give this person a chance, you can be really surprised how much you have in common with each other. And it is of course hard to say, you can of course not do anything about the fact that external factors influence your opinion, but what you can do is be aware of it. If you are aware of the fact that things can influence your opinion, you can think, okay, maybe I'm gonna give this person a second chance. Maybe I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt, and be surprised how they can surprise you. And I also want to talk a little bit about our current society, because we know how much pressure every year, how much pressure we deal with. A lot of expectations are asked from us, and sometimes it's really hard to live up to all those expectations. And some people can handle with those expectations, but some people can't. And if you can't, you're working towards a certain breaking point in which you finally maybe can collapse. And a consequence of this breaking point can be addiction or mental health issues, or like I said, a burnout. And if you then discover that around 1 million people in the Netherlands are suffering from a burnout every single year, then you think, maybe we should change something about this pressure and about how we are acting with each other in our society. And now that I'm getting to the end of my talk, I want to show a metaphor I made. I made this dice, and at this dice I wrote down several situations you can end up in the Netherlands. For example, having a nice job in which you can have your future. But I also wrote down growing up with not enough money. I would say that you have a 50-50% chance, if you roll this dice, of having an okay life. And I made this metaphor when I was reading about the philosopher John Rawls. And John Rawls said, for us it is very hard to see a problem if we are currently not being affected by it. For example, if you're having a pretty okay life, having a job, having a home, earning enough money to start a future, how can you don't want something to change? Because it's actually maybe a little bit a selfish motivation you have. And by thinking, what if I was not me? What if I was someone else? What if I was going to enter this world, and what if I was going to enter this world as a completely different person? And I would have a 50-50% chance of having an okay life. Would I take the risk to roll this dice? And before I ask you to think about this question, I want to say that of course you cannot do anything about the fact that some people grow up with more or less opportunities than you. It's completely out of your control. But what you can do is give people the opportunity to roll their dice again and try to give them a chance of a better future. And this is also something I want to do in my future. I want to think of ways how I can change a mindset of people that is more open and more acceptable towards reintegration, that maybe in a few years we don't have to talk about reintegration anymore because it simply doesn't exist anymore. I want to thank you for listening.